Hi and welcome back to another Data Hub training course video. This is Joshua, and today I will be discussing kind of a new series here on just common troubleshooting issues or errors that users might experience. And today I'm just going to be really touching in on or really zooming in on the Google Sheet functions and how they work and maybe some pitfalls. So today we'll start out with SL underscore raw orders is what we'll do. Now, I kind of want to walk through this a little bit. So something really cool about the Google Sheet functions is there's a drop down here that immediately pops up. And if you don't see that pop up, some people have said, hey, where I don't see a drop down or anything. Just click on this little question mark, turn on formula help, and then you'll see this drop down. Now notice that it's got our function, it's got our formula here, and then what it's got is it's got basically different arguments that we can put into this function. And as you kind of saw there for a second, I have got a little drop down arrow where I can see more information about this formula. So this information up here is just telling me which argument is which. Down here, I've got an example of an actual query that I could put in. Now you'll notice that for each one of these arguments up here above, I've got a subsection down here that discusses more about that. And I won't dive into each one of these arguments because there's a video specifically for that. But I wanted to touch on something, and that is the use of quotation marks, as you see down here in the example. So this is for someone who's used to Google Sheet functions, this will be very obvious. But really how we really differentiate between arguments is commas, and how we can really keep everything organized is through quotation marks. So if I were to just put in default, my Google Sheet formula won't know what that is. However, if I use quotation, default, quotation, then it recognizes that. Notice that it's green, and that means it recognizes that as an argument of my function. Now you'll notice that right now I'm looking at the venue selector part of my formula, and so venue selector is highlighted. Now when I push comma, you'll notice it switches to date range, and now we're looking at the date range argument. Okay. Now again, I need quotation marks for this date range, whether that's last month, whether that's today, or whether that's a date. Like let's say I want to put 2023-05-23. No matter what argument is there, I need those quotation marks. Now, for whatever reason, maybe let's say that I wanted to use some sort of formula to find a date range. And if that were the case, I could do something like a VLOOKUP here. And if you don't know what that means, I'll cover this in another video. But in that case, you wouldn't need quotation mark. But for any sort of other argument that you might be looking for, you're going to need quotation marks. Now again, I've got a date range now. I'm going to push comma to move on to columns. Now columns is really unique because unlike the venue selector argument or the date range selector argument where there's only one thing, in the columns there can be multiple things. And so to differentiate between what's a column and what's a date range, notice that I've got my date range in quotation marks, I've got a comma, and then I've got a new quotation mark. And I can actually just put another one and just put my columns in between there. Okay? So columns, I'll do just a couple just as an example. Order ID, I'll use a comma, venue ID, and let's just say type. Okay? You'll notice that I have commas here, but because they're in this quotation, this large quotation, I'm still in my columns argument. So if I don't have that for some reason, if I didn't have quotations, notice that this would not be green. It's not going to recognize that. But as soon as I use a quotation mark and I close this off with another quotation mark, then I can move on to the next argument with a comma, right? And so that is how the Google Sheet formulas work on a granular level, excuse me, with respect to the quotations, where you need commas, and anything else like that. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll catch you in the next video.